Policies and sensitivity training. This is the last section of MST's TAC training. In this section, we will cover the differences between a mobility device versus a mobility aid, the many different types of disabilities, what is a service animal, and the reasonable modifications of the ADA that apply to public transportation. Mobility devices and aids. People with mobility, circulatory, respiratory, or neurological disabilities use many kinds of devices and aids for mobility. Some use walkers, canes, crutches, or braces. Some use manual or power wheelchairs, or even electronic scooters. Basically, a mobility device and aid is an apparatus designed to assist walking or otherwise improve the mobility of people with a mobility impairment. Let's go over some definitions. A mobility device is a wheelchair, an electronic personal assistive mobility aid, also known as a Segway. A mobility aid is a walker, crutch, cane, or it can be a portable machine too. Additionally, a person with a disability may travel with a respirator or portable oxygen supply. Here are some things you need to know about mobility devices and aids. First of all, mobility devices and aids are an extension of the individual. What does this mean? Let's say an individual requires the use of a walker for mobility. This is no different than a person requiring the use of their leg. Therefore, their walker is considered a part of this individual because this individual requires the use of their walker for mobility. Always ask for permission before helping, providing assistance to, or even touching either your customer or their mobility device or aid. Know in advance how and where to best store a mobility device and aid in your vehicle. Be respectful and do not make any assumptions, and be conscientious and aware of your customer's personal space. Think of your customer as though they are someone in your life who you love and adore that is elderly and frail. Okay, what if your customer appears to require additional assistance you are not comfortable providing? Then you must notify your dispatch immediately and then follow their instructions as to what to do next. Types of disabilities. Let's first define what is a disability. A disability is a condition of the mind or body, an impairment that makes it more difficult for the person with the condition to do certain activities, like activity limitations or participation restrictions that keep them from interacting with the world around them. Don't ask. When it comes to a person's disability, always remember, no matter what, do not ask, because with all the many types of disabilities, many disabilities are considered a hidden disability. That means the individual's disability is not obvious. Their disability cannot be seen or heard. Let's go over some of the different types of disabilities. An individual may have a disability that is cognitive, also known as an intellectual disability. This is a nebulous term describing a person who has greater difficulty with mental tasks than the average person. The main symptom is difficulty thinking and understanding. Life skills can be impacted include certain conceptual, social, and practical skills. Cognitive disabilities are by far the most common type of disability. An individual may have a disability that is a neurological disability, such as epilepsy, neuromuscular disorders, autism, ADD, brain tumor, and cerebral palsy, just to name a few. Some neurological conditions are congenital, emerging before birth. An individual may have a psychiatric disability or mental illness. This describes a wide range of mental and emotional conditions such as clinical depression, anxiety disorder, bipolar disorder, dementia, attention deficit or hyperactivity disorder, schizophrenia, autism, post-traumatic stress disorder. An individual may have a physical disability such as a condition that affects a person's mobility, physical capacity, stamina, or dexterity. This can include brain or spinal cord injuries, multiple sclerosis, cerebral palsy, respiratory disorders, epilepsy, hearing and visual impairments, and more. As a driver, we ask you to please treat all your customers with dignity and respect. Respect their emotional and physical boundaries. Avoid asking personal questions. Again, thinking of your customer as though they are someone in your life who you love and adore that is elderly and frail. Let's discuss some of the disabilities in more detail and describe what a disability looks like in real time. Cognitive disability. The individual may be clinically diagnosed with Down syndrome, a traumatic brain injury, autism, or dementia. They will have difficulties with problem solving, memory, attention, and even verbal comprehension. As a way for them to function in their everyday lives, they may have the ability and skills for personal care, social problem solving, dressing and eating, using money, and following rules. If you have a customer who has a cognitive disability, remember to never make assumptions when interacting with them. Always speak directly to your customer. If possible, attain your customer's attention and maintain eye contact. And when speaking to your customer, speak distinctly and at a natural rate of speed. If you're able and it is safe, please help orientate your customer and assist them with balance issues too. Okay, what if your customer appears to require additional assistance you are not comfortable providing? Then you must notify your dispatch immediately and then follow their instructions as to what to do next. Next, we have visual impairments. If your customer is blind or has a visual impairment, immediately try to identify yourself to them. Let your customer know who you are and that you're there to pick them up. Say their name and respond to them verbally. And if you are returning change to your customer, be sure to count each item out loud, identifying the denomination of the bill and coin as you are giving it to them. Once you have arrived at your customer's destination, assist your customer with their surroundings, and when giving directions, please be specific. Providing this information will help to orientate your customer as to where they are located within their new surroundings. Hearing impairments. When speaking to your customer who is deaf or hearing impaired, always face and speak directly to them. If possible, obtain the customer's attention and maintain eye contact. Your customer may be trying to understand what you are saying to them by reading your lips, so try to keep your voice at a normal volume, speak distinctly, and at a natural rate of speed. If communicating with your customer is too difficult, try connecting with relay services at 711. Dialing 711, it's fast, functional, and it's free. 711 is a telephone number in Canada and the United States. It is used by the telecommunications relay service to let persons with a hearing or speech disability and people who can hear to communicate with each other using a telephone. The 711 number lets these people talk through an operator by turning the words into something that can be read on a TDD, a telecommunications device for the deaf. Additionally, as a way to be prepared, it is always a good idea to have pen and paper in your vehicle too. Earlier in this section, we discussed a bit about hidden disabilities. The definition of a disability that is hidden is a disability that is not immediately apparent. They are typically chronic illnesses and conditions such as renal failure, diabetes, and sleep disorders that significantly impair normal activities of daily living. Some people with visual or auditorial hearing disabilities who do not wear glasses or hearing aids or discrete hearing aids may not be obviously disabled. Remember, never make assumptions. Always face and speak directly to your customer and try to keep your voice at a normal volume, speak distinctly and at a natural rate of speed. If possible, attain your customer's attention and maintain eye contact. Be patient with your customer. Give them time to respond to you, especially when receiving instructions on their behalf. When you're listening to your customer, when your customer is communicating to you, be attentive and never pretend to understand what they're saying to you. Service animals. Just like a mobility device, mobility aid, and even a PCA, personal care attendant, service animals are also an extension of your customer. Because many people with disabilities use a service animal in order to fully participate in everyday life, dogs can be trained to perform many important tasks to assist people with disabilities, such as providing stabilities for a person who has difficulty walking, picking up items for a person who uses a wheelchair, preventing a child with autism from wandering away, or alerting a person who has hearing loss when someone is approaching from behind. What defines an animal to be a service animal? Under the ADA, Americans with Disability Act, a service animal is defined as an animal that has been individually trained to do work or perform tasks for an individual with a disability. The task or tasks performed by the animal must be directly related to the person's disability. What does do work or perform tasks mean? Good question. Let's say the service animal is a dog. Then the dog must be trained to perform a specific action when needed to assist the person with a disability. For example, A person with diabetes may have a dog that is trained to alert him when his blood sugar reaches high or low levels. A person with depression may have a dog that is trained to remind him to take his medication. Or a person who has epilepsy may have a dog that is trained to detect the onset of a seizure and then help the person remain safe during the seizure. What if my customer has an animal that is to provide emotional support, therapy, comfort, or is a companion animal? Another good question. Under the ADA, these terms are used to describe animals that provide comfort just by being with the person. Because they have not been trained to perform a specific job or task, they do not qualify as service animals under the ADA. However, some state and local governments have laws that allow people to take emotional support animals into public places. Please know, MST does not acknowledge emotional support, therapy, comfort, or companion animals as a service animal. Here are some pictures of what a service animal looks like. Yes, a pig can also be a service animal too. Okay, what if your customer has an animal? How do you determine if this animal is a service animal? Well, there are two questions and only two questions you may ask the customer about their animal. The first question is your animal a service animal? The second question is, what task or tasks has your animal been trained to perform? The key words in this second question are task and trained. Your customer must be able to describe the trained task to you. Please know that your customer is not required, nor is it appropriate for you to ask them to perform or demonstrate this trained task to you. If your customer refuses to or is unable to describe the trained task to you, then you must assume their animal is a pet. And if this is the case, then you must then refer to your company's policy. Typically, this training is conducted in person, and this is where I get to ask you a question. After learning about service animals in our previous slides, how would you answer this question? Let's say your customer has one of these dogs with them, a Rottweiler, Doberman Pinscher, or Pit Bull Terrier. You ask your customer the two questions, and your customer says yes, and that their animal has been specifically trained as a psychiatric support animal. What do you think? Is your customer's animal a service animal? The answer is yes. Here's a list of some of the tasks a service animal could be trained to perform. Some of the tasks that made the list may seem simple or arbitrary, but for the people who depend on the service animal, each service improves their quality of life and gives them back some of their independence. Yes, there are rules for service animals. If your customer has a service animal, it is illegal to deny service to them. And just like a PCA, personal care attendant, service animals are also an extension of your customer. That means customers with a service animal cannot be charged extra for allowing their service animal to ride in your vehicle. Did you know that service animals do not have to be labeled or wear a special vest? And your customer is not required to carry or provide documentation that their animal is a service animal. Additionally, service animals do not have to be on a leash either. Yes, even if the service animal is a dog. The ADA does not require service animals to be leashed. Also, service animals, no matter what size or how adorable they may be, are not allowed on the seat of your vehicle. They may occupy the owner's lap or the floor. And yes, your customer may have more than one service animal too. The reason for this is because each service animal may be trained for a specific task, one that is different from the task that another service animal performs. And as a menagerie, a collection, they enable your customer to fully participate in everyday life. Although it is illegal to deny a service animal in your vehicle, there are situations when you may. For instance, if the service animal is out of the owner's control, perhaps the service animal is posing a direct threat to the health and safety of others, including you. Regardless of the situation, please be mindful before you make the decision to have your customer and their service animal removed from your vehicle. For instance, let's say the service animal is a dog and is barking, and the barking sounds threatening. You find out why the service animal is barking. The service animal may be barking because it is warning their owner of something threatening. In this scenario, the service animal is doing its job. Lastly, Fear of animals is not a valid reason for denying service or having the service animal removed from your vehicle. If you have a fear of animals, please notify your company so measures can be taken to avoid assigning trips for customers who travel with their service animals. Another question for you. Let's say you are allergic to cats and your customer has a service animal that is a cat. Are you allowed to deny service to your customer? The answer is no. According to the ADA, the reason why your customer with a service animal cannot be denied service because you are allergic to the animal is because your interaction with them is an expected part of being in public. Remember, public transportation is public space. If you have an animal allergies, please notify your company so measures can be taken to avoid assigning trips for customers who travel with their service animal. Reasonable modifications. What does this mean? A reasonable modification is an adjustment made in a system to accommodate or make fair the same system for an individual based on a proven need. That need can vary. Accommodations can be religious, physical, mental, or emotional, academic, or employment related, and are often mandated by law. According to policy, as a service provider, it is important that your customers are treated equally. Your customer with disabilities has the same opportunity to use your service as customers who are without disabilities. Please treat your customers with equality. Since the Americans with Disability Act, the ADA, was signed into law on July 26, 1990 by President George H.W. Bush, a new amendment was created in July of 2015 that apply and affects public transportation. Whether you are providing a trip to an MST Rides customer or a customer is using an MST taxi voucher as a taxi cab driver, your service is considered public transportation. Reasonable modifications. There are 4 to be exact. The consumption of food and drink, taking medication, assistance with payment, and locations of where a customer boards and alights from your vehicle. Let's begin with a reasonable modification that has to do with the consumption of food and drink while traveling on public transportation. The reason for this modification is because your customer may have a medical condition that requires them to eat and or drink to avoid consequences that may be detrimental to their health and safety. Medication is another reasonable modification that was made. Your customer may have a medical condition that requires them to consume or self-administer medication to themselves. Just be prepared, your customer may have diabetes and see them sticking themselves with a syringe. This modification allows them to do just that. However, even though medical marijuana is legal in the state of California, public smoking of cannabis is against the law. Providing your customer assistance with paying their fare is another reasonable modification. As a person without a physical disability, you may not realize how much we take for granted the dexterity of our appendages, the ability to use our arms and hands, how our elbows allow us to bend our arm, or the flexibility of our fingers. This reasonable modification allows you as a service provider to provide assistance to your customer when they are paying their fare. Again, thinking of your customer as though they are someone in your life who you love and adore that is elderly and frail. Please be respectful when providing this assistance to your customer. The last reasonable modification is location. Location, location, location. As drivers, I am sure I do not have to tell you about how inconsistent our community's roads and walkways are designed, or how they have eroded over time, making some areas unsafe and even dangerous, not only for drivers but also for pedestrians too. Additionally, there are detours and obstacles like road construction that appear on any given day or time. This modification requires the positioning of your vehicle to be in a location where it is safe and there are no obstructions to your customer when boarding and alighting from your vehicle. And this concludes this portion, Policy and Sensitivity Training of the MST TACT training.